All right, there we go. Okay.
All
All right, it's a little after 6 o'clock for our strategic planning committee. Again, I wanted to thank the committee for coming back again together. I do believe we have about 10 out of, our 14 members. So such a great turnout. So what we wanted to do tonight is just really take a look at what it is that we've been, here we go, what you guys asked us to do and some of the highlights. We have I think it's an 18-page document that I emailed you. I didn't make a copy of it because it's filled with color and things like that. But for those of you that are parents with us, that get the board packets, we have looked at this from a strategic planning team, but ultimately from a student achievement committee, really taking a look at and going through the flow of this, highlighting the board, keeping our community in the loop about how it is that we're doing. And we are really on track with, I would say, 99% of the things that we're trying to do. We'll highlight the one area that we paused a little bit, but we'll kind of go through that. So I'm not going to go page by page, pillar by pillar, okay? You have all of that. I'm sorry you're disappointed, Brian.
Yeah.
But what I did do, though, is I think this is a chance of reflection for our district. Again, we've had a lot of great things. And I'm not going to go into all the accolades and stuff, but what I wanted to do was really take some of the key highlights that I thought that our district and our administrative team and our staff have been able to do in each of the areas. So let's start with our student experience. Goal number 1 was strengthening academic growth for all students. As you know, the state of Wisconsin implemented Act 20, okay, which is a new some literacy expectations, kindergarten through 3rd grade. It was perfect timing. The state released new standards, and on our curriculum cycle, we just implemented a brand new kindergarten through 5th grade ELA program. When I say ELA, reading, writing, phonemic awareness, word study, things like that. So it aligns with Act 20, with what the expectations are. The other piece that we've been doing, and again, we'll get into this in a second, is really digging into that MLSS process, which is ultimately looking at the students who may need a little bit of extra help. Okay, as part of the Act 20 work, we have diagnostics, we've got universal screeners, all sorts of things, and it identifies kids at a very micro level in a lot of different areas, and then ultimately the district is required to respond. Okay, there's a lot of requirements in that. Again, that's a whole nother hour presentation. Maria Kacharski's in charge of that, certainly, as we go from there too. Another piece that we've been working through is our professional learning community work. So we really invested in our instructional specialists and our administrative team this year. I can tell you next year we are going to be, in our guiding coalitions, have been doing some of that work too as well. And next year we are going to be bringing and unloading and working with our staff in the next phases. Again, working with some people around the state and really kind of delivering that. So it's an implementation year. The next two are the data warehouse and the creating the baselines for the subgroups. One of the pieces that came out, again, that we talked about quite a bit, and you'll see it for next year too as well, is really digging deep into what do our students look like, sound like, where are they, and who are they for the ones who might need a little bit extra help, okay? I will tell you, when we've been digging, our special education reading area is an area that we are really going to be hitting hard. We're going to be investing more staff into that and really making sure that, again, we take a look at all of our groups. Special education is our biggest subgroup that we do, but there's other subgroups that we'll continue to. The baseline, we continue to collect baselines across our district, and one of the pieces that we're aware of too is the state assessment has changed. So again, the state assessment standards, again, if you've listened a little bit politically, big political hot button, but they've reset some expectations, but we also have some other diagnostics, as well as our internal. What does our iReady say, our Ames Web, and some of our locally designed assessments too as well. And we have this data warehouse that basically puts it all together. It puts it all together. Next path is and again, it's a very unique, Mary's into it all the time, Steve's digging into it all the time. It is a one-stop shop. Dave's looking like, what? Dave may not know what that is. We as an administrative team have been working that out, working the kinks out, getting everything ready to go. And again, you will see that training for next year into our staff, because that is the one-stop shop for academics, behaviors, you name it, it can be housed there. And again, it's really, really impressive. But again, more to come on that. That's why we have a staff member going, what? Again, more administrative in our instructional specialist.
I'm often confused, so I mean,
Yes. The one piece, and again, the one thing that we did not have time for is our 4K review this year, okay? It was on our strategic plan. We didn't have the capacity to be able to do that. Act 20 is a huge, huge lift, and we just didn't get to it. So that is why when you see on that document, that is our one red area that something had to give. And we apologize, Stacy, we're very sorry. But again, next year that is going to be moved to next year from that standpoint. So again, that's kind of the academic piece of the students in the growth side. Then we wanted to do in that personal growth, right? What else would be other than the academic stuff? And it's ultimately tied to the Merton values, right? So again, we launched common behavior expectations. Again, relaunched, redid some things across the entire K-8 world. We revised our ACP course, again, looking at academic and career planning, taking a look at, okay, what are some of those strong foundations? What does Arrowhead expect? What do we want to do to make sure that our kids are ready to go from here over to Arrowhead? Our principals have launched our Merton values. Again, tomorrow I do believe there's a primary school assembly. I think I saw that, Stacy, right? Again, that's going to be around Merton values. Steve runs once a month with grade levels. Again, Merton values as we take a look at that too as well. And then the other piece ultimately too is again, the ACP and that 8-9 ACT go hand in hand. They really, really do. It is one of our more well-attended parent nights. It's basically where we tell our families, our 8th grade families, come on in and we basically walk through, you know, I won't say the expectations of Arrowhead, but what happens after Arrowhead and how you have to prepare right now or start to think about what it is you want to do, because you have to choose pretty quick at Arrowhead, unfortunately. But again, that's another area where we try to engage our families, but really help our kids to say, hey, you don't need to know what it is you want to do, but if you want to keep all your doors open, here is the avenues that you have to consider when scheduling, even as a freshman. So that's kind of our student experience. Again, a ton of work has been going into that. To be honest, we have the ACP and we have obviously the values, but a ton of ACP and parent relationships there. And then ultimately Act 20, gathering data and understanding what it is we want to do with that. Our staff experience. The biggest thing that our people are on their minds is compensation. We might have talked a little bit about that the last year. So we are very proud to say that there has been a tremendous amount of work. Our teachers, again, we started with our teachers. The teachers represent basically 68 out of our 120 employees. So and that has been the biggest lift. We invited team members. Dave Wagner has been part of that the whole time. We've had a very diverse group of teachers, ranging from, I think, a 4th year teacher to Becky Apperman's 31, I think, to maybe more than that. So we have a great balance, and we had 7 educators, 7 teachers, who donated well over 20 hours of their time. We met 9 times. We will meet again tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. in Dave's room to finalize our presentation to the school board in closed session on Monday the 7th. Okay? A culmination. I was talking to Brian before, and he goes, what's new? I said, well, compensation. And he said, again, not to speak for him, he goes, that must have been, a lot of back and forth. It was. It was. We gave the team parameters of 5%. We really took a look at, we were talking about how to divvy up $200,000. And that was a 5% increase of our teacher pool. But even before we got there, we went back all the way to the history of compensation. How did this all work? How are teachers compensated? We talked about Act 10. We looked into what does the data show us as it relates to how much money does the Merton Community School District spend on their teachers, spend on administration. Where do we spend our money? So we pretty much did, Brian, you'll appreciate, an annual meeting to our teacher compensation team, because they had to have the foundation. Because it's not just like, well, let's just go start grabbing money. Well, there's a lot of competing interest in that. So the team used all the frameworks that you guys told us to do: fiscally responsible, transparent, loyalty. Where am I going to be here? How do we make Merton the destination district? And how do we make sure that, or we assist in trying to make this the last destination. And we are very pleased, and again, I'm kind of just going to leave it at that because it's interesting, our team hasn't even really shown this to anybody. I mean, I've had teachers say, Ron, I need a new car, should I go get one? And they chuckle, and I say, don't buy that Mercedes yet, you know? But again, so it's been really tight-lipped, it's been a great team to work with, and we're going to unveil this on Monday to the entire board, and then ultimately present it to the union for negotiations, and then on the 28th, here it is. And in the meantime, bring our teachers up to speed, because we don't want to show them something that the board's going to say, you know, what are we going to do? Let's massage it first. So that's really been, again, hats off to Dave and 6 other educators who we've been meeting from 4:30 to 6:30 to 7 o'clock since November, I think, Dave? Whatever. It all blends together. It was another strategic planning team. It truly was. And we did a ton of learning around it. And again, as community members, you'll continue to hear more about that. But again, it truly was driven by data. It truly was. We took a look at groups, subgroups, masters, non-masters, positions of critical shortage. We talked about all of that stuff.
You got a lot of comps too.
Comps, yeah. I mean, we're pulling compensation. How much does a teacher in Kettle Moraine make if they have 5 years in a master's degree? And what happens if they're a CTE teacher? What happens if they're speech and language? What happens if they're special ed? First grade, library media, pulled those comps. So again, we pulled from a teacher lens as much data as we could and present it. So it doesn't become emotional. And again, we were able to say, hey, no one's losing any money. And actually, I'll let someone, everybody's gonna get a raise.
Can I say 2 things?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
What I think is really nice about it is that it is extremely clear, and I mean, it is extremely, like, simple. There's not a lot of different hoops that you have to jump through, and it is, you can see where you can go. Like, you can plan on things if it is to be implemented. And then there is a piece of bonus for loyalty to recognize those people that are in-house in the district for the years, and they're being compensated for those years if it goes through. So, like, it feels like it hit all the buttons.
Yep. And even from a new teacher standpoint, because we wanted that lens, because we have people who haven't even been in the district for more than 3 or 4 years there, and they're like, that's something I can really try to reach for. Ashley?
So I know it has not been unveiled to the teachers yet because it needs to go to the school board first, but is it your assessment that for the 6 teachers plus Dave that contributed all of this time, that by going through the foundation, it really helped provide some transparency? Do the teachers that are in the committee feel like, okay, I feel better, I understand now, and we work together, it sounds like, on that committee to pull all that data and come up with something that you feel proud of and that you think will reach everybody?
My pulse is that I mean, for the intermediate teachers, I know that it feels good.
Okay.
I can't speak as much for the primary teachers because I've had personal conversations
Sure.
with them outside of it. But I mean, we really took a long
Yeah.
time. There's never gonna be 100% winners, but I mean, I think we minimized that to the best of our ability. And there are other benefits that I think are put into place that allow those that maybe aren't moving as much to at least feel like there's still a win within the contract. That's how I share it.
Right, yeah. Because one of the pieces that we noticed, and again, we did a scatter plot of all of our staff versus years of experience, all over the board, right? Looked like somebody just threw spaghetti on the wall. Now, again, we can't fix every issue that we have, right? Some people came in at the right time, with the right credentials, in the right moment. That late August hire, I needed this, and they're like, Ron, I'll come, but it's gonna cost this, and we need the best for our community. So the team went back and forth, back and forth. And I guess, Ashley, 2 things I would say is as soon as we thought we had a plan, we didn't have a plan. Because then somebody'd be like, hey, what about the teacher who's only been here 3 years, 4 years? Is this good enough to tell a new a 2nd or 3rd year teacher that it's worth me staying here? The answer at that time was no. We have to do something. Okay, so, but again, remember the $200,000 pot? Where are we going to pull from? So the other piece I would say, I hope the team understands, and again, this is the one thing, and it was difficult as being a member of this team, you know, because again, compensation. We are the 3rd or 4th, again, percentage-wise. Remember, we have a budget. That is controlled by the state of Wisconsin. We can't control that. We have a budget. For our teachers, we are the third or fourth highest percentage of money giving to our teachers in the whole entire county, out of 11 or 12. Okay, and those are the K-12s. And arrowheads and things like that. So the percentage of money that we can give to teachers, we give to teachers is the third highest in the county. Now, we have a lot of teachers. We do. Why do we do that? We have small class sizes. Okay, so we have small class, so we have a few more people to pay in that group, but again, it shows that we are really putting a high percentage of dollars into our teacher salaries. Well, at the same time, again, the question was, well, where's those administrators? We're second or third bottom, percentage-wise, for how much money we give our administrators, percentage-wise, across the district. Why is that? We don't have a lot of them. Let's be honest, we just don't have a lot of administrators, which means you pay less in the percentage and away you go. And so again, we looked at all of that to give the team hopefully a transparent that either the district, the board, Ron, just isn't saying, ooh, we're giving it all to Jordan in buildings and grounds. Maria gets this. I mean, because ultimately at the end of the day, after we pay our bills and our people, we've got like $800,000 to decide what it is we want to do. And meet all of those needs that our families want, our communities, the expectations, our staff, resources. So again, we're a very people-driven business. That was the teacher side. For the administration, the support staff, that's when we went and did local comps. So we participated in a statewide study where Dawn Baumgartner, bless her heart, spent significant time coding, resorting, putting everything into this huge database. When I say huge, millions and millions of pieces of data. Because it's every person who works, whether it's a food service worker, custodian, transportation, superintendent, teacher, whatever it is, into this big old database. Baird, you might have heard of them, they ran the database. And so what it spit out is, when we think about I'm going to use a second shift custodian. I have 45 data points for school districts around us about how much that person makes, how many years of experience they have. So again, we're maintenance, middle school principal, maybe other support staff. I mean, like we said, library media, superintendent, whatever it is. I have all this data. So when I go and talk to Jordan and I talk to Steve, I'm going to say, hey, here is the market, given the information that I have. So in some cases, some people are going to be like, wow, that's great. I'm going to get a big raise now. For others, I'm going to show you're highly compensated. So we're going to give you something. This is an adjustment year. That's one of the things we talked about as teachers. This is an adjustment year. We're going to reset, and then after this, we move. After this, we move. Right.
And adjustment years, I've run into cases where it takes 6 or 7 years to get things sorted out for adjustment. You're going to be able to accomplish all the shortfalls in 1 year? Damn, that's sweet.
One. Yep.
That's amazing.
And Brian, what I'm going to tell you is with given a 5% bucket across the entire board, if we are able, when I say we, and then our administrative team and the teaching team, we were able to be really, really competitive within 1 year.
Congrats.
Within 1 year.
That's awesome.
We are in great fiscal shape. And now again, remember, most districts don't have a 5% bucket to work with. So some of them are like only 2 to 3. We're going to eventually get there. But we feel really good about offering. And it's driven by data. Again, and that was one of the things that was asked, I think it is comprehensive wage data. Because when I sit down with people, if I sit down with Ann and say, Ann, we're going to have this year you're going to get, not going to get CPI this year. Really sorry, and this is why. Driven by data, comprehension, So again, that is going to be going to the board again on the 7th. More to come on that again, because I basically listed out by name and position every person in the district or group of people. So for our special education IAs, we treated them different than regular education IAs. Are they full-time or are they part-time? In the custodians, are they maintenance? Are they a lead? Are they a second shift? Are they part-time, full-time? I got more data than you ever want to see. But then we ultimately create a proposal that says this is why we feel this is where to go. So again, living within our means, and we're very fortunate to be able to, what we would feel to say, this is our reset year, and away we go. So, that's what we've been spending a lot of time on. So ultimately, and it was interesting, when we asked our staff, we had an all-staff engagement meeting. I think, Mary, you ran that one. Or that was earlier in the year.
Nice job.
What was the one thing on your mind? What's on your mind? It was all compensation. It was all compensation. So, what's that? We knew that. We knew that. Nothing's changed, and everybody's just kind of waiting. Everybody's just kind of waiting. So, and then we've also, the professional development, we continue to really try to dig down. We've been doing more instructional assistant work this year. And then ultimately making things as meaningful as we can. Mary needs something different than Dave, and something different than Stacy. Again, trying to make that really meaningful. And again, a big thank you to Maria, our administrative team, and our instructional specialists for pulling that off.
So Ron, by the
Yeah,
way,
go ahead.
that was Mary who did facilitate that meeting. First of all, give her credit for it.
Yeah.
Secondly, though, it was, I mean, it's kind of going back to the slide before, but that was one of the times where she was leading something about our Merton values. Like how do we live that as a staff piece, but also we've been doing things, you touch base on it.
Has been a Merton value
Yep.
focus for us.
But even like the middle school, I know the primary's done things too, like we've done an MVP, the Merton value personified every month with that, and then we talk about when students, teachers write, why were they the MVP for the month, they check which value they, were selected for. So, I mean, that's just one example, so it's just, the reason I bring this up is because even as we sit at our leadership team, I think it was important for this team to know, like, we bring this team up almost every week. Every Monday, this team comes up, and as far as the work, where are we? Are we on track? Are we doing this? Or what are we thinking about? We're always future thinking too. So, I just want to share.
Yeah. And that's one thing I did put up is the employee engagement side, again, once a month, bringing in those Merton values, whole building, all district together, highlighting them. It's Mary, Maria. I think we've got Lori going to be doing some things here upcoming too. So again, just that engagement piece about how do we continue to bring that. The other piece is, again, as part of the plan, trying to people to understand what their benefits are. And in particularly, that's how do we get people to save money and understand the benefit plan? How do we bring them opportunities that's both good for the district as well as the staff member? The school board, we'll have a third meet and confer session. I will tell you, the first two, nobody showed up. We're going to keep going. This one is going to be a meet and confer around our employee handbook, and again, we encourage, we've tried mornings, we've tried afternoons, and again, we're going to keep trying because it's important. You never know who's going to come to express their concerns or what they want to hear, things like that. The other piece is, and again, right around that time too, I go and meet with staff, I meet with teams, I meet with individuals. I've been doing check-ins with new staff, the 30s, 60, 90, 120s. Again, one of the pieces that the board said is just don't make it optional, it's mandatory. I said, okay, because we've had 2 mandatory and some optional ones, but they're like, no, make it mandatory. It's good to make sure we check in and stuff like that too. So again, really trying to make sure that our staff feel heard, that our staff understand where it is that we're trying to go, and really just, making them feel good about what it is that we're doing here in the district and things. Finally, the last piece that we really wanted to talk about was that community experience. And again, our first goal was around our families. We have deployed a new communication system, so our Sunday update. So again, we try to just keep it simple, one communication a week. Again, we've gotten some really, really good feedback around just the one communication per week there too as well. Our literacy website, and again, for those of us, again, for Act 20, we are required to create a literacy website. It is impressive. If you go on to our website, and if your child is struggling at all in reading, in grades K through 8, it is impressive what Maria put together too as well. So, again, that was one of the things that was on our family side, because part of the Act 20 work is partnering with families. So we have to demonstrate how are we trying to, and having these individual meetings and things like that. Finally, we for the engagement for our community newsletters. Again, thank you to Mary. Mary Iwansky has been our chief editor and chief of putting that all together. Thank you, Mary. We are going to be working on our third one. here coming up a little bit later this spring. And then throughout that too, one of the things we wanted to do was ask our community what they want to hear more about. Okay, because we have easy access to our families, but what we're going to do through that newsletter is try to see what interests they have to help engage into our work here, which you'll see as a priority for next year. But ultimately, what do they want to hear more about? Because the goal is to always keep them informed. What do they want to know more about? And again, I'm not saying we're going to have all these seminars, but it's going to be, okay, if you want to know more about taxes or whatever it is, but then we'll put more money into school finance, or put more time into school finance in those community newsletters, if that's something that you're interested in. So, again, trying to really be, listening and always being in tune with what our community wants and needs and things like that too as well. So that's kind of the work that we've been doing. Obviously, there's more in that 18-page document, but that kind of summarizes it. Staff, anything else that we missed and anything? Thanks for jumping in as we go. Or parents, or anybody who, see anything that we kind of missed as maybe a highlight that I might have oversaw? It's been a lot of fun.
I will say the dashboard, because you've been over that, and staff will be trained on that. But when we think about the processes of, we've talked about this as a team here, about what about our students, not only, all kinds from our students from the GT lens, to our students who are struggling, to our students maybe that have individualized reading plans. A lot of times things like Skyward and different things aren't the most teacher or just person friendly. This is like the most personal friendly. It's so easy. I mean, it makes like our MLSS process, so when we meet, when I have my reading specialist, my math specialist, and working with the interventionists and bringing things, we talk about students and how are they doing. And I click on a student, and you just click, it's so easy to see progress, and I know it seems simple, but it's like, kind of nerdy, but it's awesome.
It's a big deal.
It's huge, it's a huge time saver, because before you'd have to pull stuff from their forward tests and all their right. I mean, now it's all in there. If they have, we can easily put all, if they have a behavior plan or whatever it might be, we just have it all at our fingertips to see it as a student. And you can really, so it's just, we talked about that analysis process in here and how we're going to help all our students, and it just makes it so much easier.
That sounds like a real commitment to getting the data in there. You got
Oh, yeah.
a person assigned to that?
It wasn't me.
Okay.
That's why I really like it. It just
Interface.
magically appears.
Yeah.
I'll say the beautiful thing about it is the interface with all those other systems. So every night, like, it pulls from Skyward and it updates any absences that we entered in Skyward system in that day. So when we click on this, the next day, like, their absence data has been updated. If we put behavior reports in Skyward, overnight it updates, so that tomorrow when I click on next tab, like, I can see that kid's behavior report.
So I ready to take the test.
Listen, I ready looked at this,
Everything.
like, everything just
That's
goes
sweet.
together. So that's like.
This was a kind of a breakout group from, they made a huge program that's very, very popular.
Yeah.
They sold it, and they said, we're gonna do something better now. And we just happened to, Maria just happens to know those individuals, and yeah, so we're one of the first people, and we just love it. It's been a
And it
lifesaver.
has made
That's
the
awesome.
communication with families around some of those things easier as well. So like we could put the Act 20 reading things in there, and there's a state requirement that parents acknowledge receipt
Yep.
of that. So they got an email saying, log into NextPath using your student's ID number, and they can log in and digitally like acknowledge that we're not
Yeah.
communicating via email, like it's all in the same system.
Mhm.
It's fun.
That's impressive.
Pretty slick.
It is.
That is really
It
impressive.
is. It's, yeah, because we've been looking at a couple of them, and then this product came out, and we're like, yes, we'll do that. So, yeah, so some great things that help us do a lot of our things here too. Okay, so would like to focus and shift to the 25-26 school year. And I'm not quite sure if everybody had a chance to take a look. I know this one was a little bit easier, and again, get your glasses out if you need to, sorry about that. But this is basically one tab in our strategic plan from an administrative standpoint is obviously we do a lot of work, we take a look at next year, and then we say, hey, may not be ready this year, but what about the years down the road too as well? So again, don't want to go through everything here, but again, we do have areas that we want to continue to go through and things like that, from an employee experience, again, really taking a look at our recruitment efforts. What do we do from a our interview processes to the flow charts, making sure that everything is tight. I mean, it's interesting, onboarding some new administrators this year, and we're hiring right now. Does anybody have this, this or that? We're like, well, let's just create a common place for it all. So we have that now. So, but again, really taking a look at how can we continue to be efficient, and what do we want to do with our hiring process, and how do you, really tease out to get the best people possible here. And that has to start with a strong interview process too. So, so just looking at all those types of things there too as well. So, and then ultimately the engagement, continuing to work with staff on that, and employee management meetings, more recognition systems. Again, Steve and Bob have been really working, and they've got some ideas for some social media stuff for next year, so that we'll be deploying. And again, just really trying to keep people engaged and involved, and ultimately wanting to keep working here. So any feedback or any ideas about, hey Ron, what about this, or from the employee experience standpoint?
Can I highlight something in the yellow column on the very bottom under strengthen personal growth by focusing on Merton values, develop Merton value implementation plan for K-8. Did you see that? That came around the work of, we talked a lot around here about, like, what are we gonna do to Merton values, right, in that kind of piece, and we know, like, even from a middle school team too, we wanted to do something different besides second step. Second step we felt was not the right middle school thing, right? In knowing capacity, to try to go through a curriculum review and try all the other things that we've been doing. So next year we're tasked, or it's like, next year we're gonna be exploring what is next. What are we gonna, we're gonna find something like Character Strong, or we're gonna be making something ourselves. What are we doing we're gonna be putting a team together for that piece. We certainly haven't forgot about it. In the meantime, we felt comfortable with that because we still have designed an ACP course that all kids can take. Our 8th graders, I was just talking about transition to 8th grade, or to transition to high school, or doing some goal setting, or in some different things. So it's not like we're not hitting some of the Merton value pieces through our ACP course. However, that is a next step. So that's certainly something that's on the radar, not forgotten. But in the meantime, we'll have our ACP courses next year as we take a team together to see what's out there. So I want to highlight, because I know we talked about that.
Yeah, that's that big part, the Merton values, so that really got in. I mean, we spent significant time on that here, and next year there will be a district level committee across K through 8 that investigates Merton values, characters, values, and things like that too as well.
Who do you anticipate will be part of that committee?
We'll be starting to talk about that. Before I say, is there a community part to it and stuff like that too? So we're talking about that right now.
Got it.
Yep.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah. It's brief.
You mentioned subgroups earlier and kind of touched on it, but in the yellow column at the very bottom, monitor baseline for student subgroups. Can you, high level, talk about what a subgroup might be, or a couple different subgroups?
Sure. A subgroup could be special education. In particular, you're going to hear us a lot about, we're going to be really targeting special education reading.
Okay.
About how do we take a look at, we're going to take a look at Ames Web, because pretty typical, if you have an individual education plan for reading, you're going to be on a reading plan per the state. So which means you're going to be probed in Ames Web. We have iReady data. So we're going to be monitoring, are we working with children? Are they responding?
Mm-hmm.
Are they responding?
To measure.
To measure growth. And if it's not, we need to pivot and say, okay, we're going to try something else. You're going to see also an investment in staff, in more reading teachers here as well. Our special education staff are not trained as reading teachers. They have specialties. They may have some specific training in reading programs, but they are not reading teachers, because as we know, they have to have behavior, academic, social, emotional, all of those other pieces from a K through 12 lens. Ultimately, a special educator is licensed K through 12. A reading teacher, again, a reading teacher is not going to help a child who's nonverbal, right? That's where a special educator comes in and has those specific skill sets. But a child who gets a special education reading IEP has gone through our best people. And again, this is going to sound bad, but then we give them to cross-categorical special education teachers who do not have close to the amount of training that those reading people had. So if those reading people couldn't get them to move, yes, we qualify, but now what we want to do, give them another great educator who is licensed and understands reading more than what our cross-categorical teachers would be. okay? So, again, there's gonna be an investment in that to making sure, because for those subgroups, the other piece is really making sure a subgroup could be our free reduced lunch population. It's only about 5 or 6%, but how are they doing? How are they doing? So, those are a couple different subgroups. Gifted and talented is another subgroup. Are our kids who are achieving at a very high level, are they growing per their iReady scores, for instance? So really taking a look at the demographics. So those would be some examples of subgroup. We don't have a tremendous amount of race or ethnic subgroups. We don't. So we have to take a look at the subgroups that we have. Are we serving them properly? But ultimately, are we moving them? And as you know, our report card came out and we were very positive. 4th ranked school district in the state of Wisconsin. That has truly come from our work with our subgroups. Our work with our students who are not yet achieving, because ultimately that report card is gauged around a big percentage of it, probably about 25% of your report card, 25 to 30, is how do you work with the bottom 25% of your student population, okay? And that bottom student population is defined as last year's, on the state forward assessment, the bottom 25%. Now, we have students who are proficient on the forward state exam, who are considered in that small subgroup. We are fortunate enough to be very high achieving, right? The piece that we want to be a high achieving, high growth district, right? That's what you guys told us that you wanted. We agree with that, by the way. But the only way you can achieve that growth on a state report card is if you really focus on the growth of all students. All students. So that subgroup, those kids who are just those fringe kids, I think about my own child who was on the fringe, just barely. He was in that bottom subgroup, but he is forgotten because he's compliant, he does good work at school, but yet the state is saying, are you growing that child? And what can we do to continue to move them? So really taking a look at all children from that standpoint. That's a really long-winded answer there.
Thank you.
Can I just add, so that's what the district is doing in terms of subgroups, but at the middle of the year, I think of when we got our iReady data, we spent half a PD day letting teachers dig into who are the subgroups within your classroom,
Yep.
right? So
Thank
every
you.
classroom has subgroups of students. Some classes end up with a subgroup of higher kids who they need to differentiate for. Some end up with a group that they need to pull a small group for. We have small group time built into our schedule every day at our elementary school. And then we give teachers time at that mid-year data to be wait, who is the high achiever, low growth, right? Who's my high, or who's my low achievement, low growth? Who is my subgroup in my class right now that is currently in the low growth? I still have half a year with them. Let's move the needle on those kids. And so we let our this is district level, but we have built for the last couple of years time in for teachers to look within their own classroom to determine their own subgroups that they need to focus on. And you guys have done that with ELA, small group instruction, small group math instruction up here, within the 25 kids I'm responsible for this 80 minutes, who are my subgroups? Let's grow them.
Correct.
And they might be different than the subgroups the district is focusing on.
Thank you, Mary. That's why I run the operations side. Thank you. So again, a ton of work. The biggest things too next year, we're going to be going back to 4K. That is not going to get pushed anymore, as well as science. Okay, so the new science standards have come out, and we're going to take a look at that. So that's kind of the big, last year was reading. This year, the good thing is we're not implementing anything new this year. For our primary staff, it's math one year, ELA, which is reading, writing, phonemic awareness, sound, and things like that. It will be a nice, let's catch our breath here a little bit. Let's continue. Now, we've got ideas and we've got next steps in that ELA curriculum, because there's 3 or 4 of them that are submitted there. But we've got big plans for that, to move that. But again, when we talk about something new, our teachers are not going to be coming back to something, oh my goodness, I have a brand new thing I need to learn about. We are going to be investigating science next year. And again, when we say science, that is STEAM in those areas, and really taking a look at what it is that we really want to do.
Now, the day for a Polycarp Cush Day. Polycarp Cush
I
is
haven't
a
forgotten.
Merton alumni who won the Nobel Prize in science. This is the year.
This is it. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it.
Polycarp Cush.
I don't think
I'll
he's
have to
available.
write that down. Is he available to come in? Can we Skype him in?
dead.
I know.
Yeah.
But
I got
there is information across the street that Mickey Nelson had acquired. But, I mean, he is the only, to the best of my knowledge, the only Merton alumni who won a Nobel Prize in Science.
I didn't know that. I've been here for 14 years.
That should be on the
Yes. Polycarp Kush. I mean,
I'm gonna have to reach out to you and say, hey, how do you spell that?
Yeah.
And
Just like it's
I'll
on.
reach out to you.
Polycarp Kush, yes. He was here, he did not graduate, he was here only for a few years when his father was the pastor
Okay,
down the street that way. Now it must be.
thank you for that. I didn't know that.
And what a name.
That's why I didn't forget it.
Polymers or something.
Hey, it's plastics, this is a plastic guy.
His sisters had like normal names. He's named after an early church father, that's what he's named after.
Nice.
But,
Thank you for that.
Ron, question for you.
Yes,
As part of the survey to the community, just something to think about, like, is it possible to try to find out what might interest community members to coming and attending like a school board meeting or our parents? Like, what are we missing, talking from someone who comes to the school board meetings and they're not as well attended, at least in person, as maybe they could be?
or online.
You're right. You know, what is the reason? Like, trying to dig into what is the reason for that? Are we not reaching them? Certain people must know, maybe it's not exciting, like I think it's exciting. But, you know, what is that and what can we do to enrich?
So barriers for involvement.
Yes, yes.
It's lack of snacks.
I was gonna say, you know, how many people to show up with these muffins, donut, I mean, maybe a donut.
Once they give you beer tonight.
celebration, I thought
You're gonna get me in trouble, Brian. You're gonna get me in trouble.
I might even look forward to you going.
Right? I mean, by the way, when you came to the board meeting to present, it was so good.
Yeah, because we do have access to only about 20% of our tax base.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Other ideas across any of them? Go ahead.
We talked about in the community newsletter, I've written down that somebody, I think it was Nikki Cotton, had said like,
Yep.
can we give people the opportunity to join our mailing list, right?
Yep.
Who in our community wants to get the random Sunday thing that
Yep.
Ron sends out, right?
I don't
Or-
live here, so
Yeah,
I
or-
have to come to the church.
Yeah, or the board packet,
Yep.
when it comes out, like, can we just have people sign up for that who aren't on our
Yep.
general mailing list?
And that'll be on there too. Yep.
Just say yes.
And then how do you know to sign up? If you don't get the mailing, how do you know to sign up for the mailing?
Well, we'll push that off on our signs to say, hey, go to our, I mean, so we'll do a communication push
I
on
gotta
that too
read
as well.
fast.
Could it also be in that
Does
Just
the
send around an
printed
email.
newsletter come to the church?
It'll be in the newsletter,
You
yeah.
don't get the printed
Yep.
one?
That's maybe something to put in the newsletter too.
Yeah.
If we thought the
You should-
Village
you get
Grounds
mail.
update was exciting, or
You get
maybe
mail.
we could put that stuff in and
You get
see
mail, you should
How
get
much
it.
money
You
we're
get it.
saving with new boilers
Yes,
and
I was
efficiency
absolutely.
levels.
Yes, the
That was a
There
big
you
one.
go. Let's throw it out here.
That too.
Yeah, that's maybe something to add into the newsletter.
It's a beautiful glossy trifold. Can't believe it would get thrown out of.
I'm sure.
Because there's been so many nice, beautiful trifolds and beautiful postcards.
Yeah, lately.
Well, we have kids on ours. and
That's
that-
right.
Right, exactly.
They smile.
She
Snowballs
knows
in their
everything.
hand, like a picture.
Yeah.
I was like, I know those kids.
So, but yes, from a community standpoint, we're just like, hey, first of all, is it communication? Okay, so then, if you want to get the Sunday update at 5 PM,
Right.
here you go. It's yours. It's yours. Yep, that's our goal. And the other piece, Mary, if you want to talk a little bit about the community involvement piece that we're talking about?
Is it gonna go forward?
Yeah, we're going to push it out there.
Great, then I'll talk about
Yep.
it. I'm not gonna bring it up if it's not gonna happen.
Yep.
It came up actually at one of my GT things, like getting kids in touch with the most common expert or the most knowledgeable individual that you have access to. And so at the GT meeting, it was, who can you reach out to up your ladder of personal contacts, your 6 degrees, however you call it. In connection with this, I had approached Ron about like, could we just compile a database of like, what are the skills, talents, and knowledge base of people in our community? And it might sit there for 2 years, right? Like, we might collect that somebody is a biochemist, blah, 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 and we don't need that person for 2 years. But then suddenly a student comes in who has high interest in that and wants to do a project around that, or we adopt new science curriculum and that's part of it, or we want to have career day and we're looking for people who have unique jobs beyond just the people that we typically pull from to get the same, group of speakers year after year. And could we have this database to say like, okay, let's go here and pull this person to come in and talk to our kids while they're learning this thing in science, or let's pull here because this travel to this place that we were learning about in social studies, and they can bring their real pictures in. I mean, years ago, we used to have, our former superintendent would always come in and talk about his time helping to run the orphanage in the South Sudan, and like him talking to our students about selling all his worldly possessions in the United States and moving to South Sudan was really impactful, because our kids don't always see that side of the world or that side of perspective. And so developing some kind of sign-up opportunity to say like, is it a career you're willing to share? Is it a travel experience you're willing to share? Is it a time abroad you're willing to share? And then having that as a resource that our staff can pull from, that I can pull from gifted services, that we can pull from a curricular perspective or from an ACP perspective, to help our kids connect to more real people doing these real things or traveling to these real places, as opposed to just reading about them or watching about them or doing.
Or waiting for a career fair.
Or waiting for a career
Yep.
fair.
Even like what Dave does, you know, when you're doing the woodworking or soldering, you could have a carpenter come in and explain to the kids building furniture and, you know, bringing people into that side of things too.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's a lot of other opportunities throughout the district.
One of my current projects is I'm partnering with Husko right now, and we are doing a pilot of like a capstone experience that the kids, 21 students going on a field trip there that Husko's paying for everything as of right now.
They
So we're
are.
gonna see how that
I
goes.
talked to Husco the other day at the brewery game.
Did you?
Yes, I did. Keep going.
So it's been a lot of back and forth, but we're gonna have them make things here at school that we then test on actual equipment at Husko, and then we have this lunch, and then we do a lot of high school level math, so I'm
Yes.
a little bit nervous about the math that's going to happen. But it should be great, I think. And then I already made a contact with somebody at Milwaukee Tool, so.
There's a few of those in the district too, by the way, I can get you in contact with, in my neighborhood. Yeah.
I'm all, like, I mean, the vision that I have would be great if we could, I don't know what the right word is, remake bigger, expand, so that we could then have it as like a whole 8th grade capstone piece, because that was, Austin Schmidt's idea, because after his daughter went through it, he's like, this would be a great connect. He's like, the kids at Merton already know how to use a multimeter. He's like, we're hiring engineers that don't know how to use a multimeter yet. So that was the funny piece.
And Husco was so excited, so I was at the choir game, or the choir performed the national anthem on Tuesday, I think, was it Tuesday? And Austin came up and we
Good.
talked for a half hour. I mean, and some guy was going like this to the game, and we're just like, he'll be fine. Yeah, they're very excited, and I was like, what a great opportunity for Husco, but also for our kids to be able to witness that.
And I think the piece that all goes back to is what you mentioned when you were going through things about our ACP and how many parents show up to that 8-9 transition meeting, right? Like, if you can go into Arrowhead with some kind of idea of what you want to get to in Arrowhead, your senior year, I want to get to the senior capstone project at Arrowhead, you have to be able to work back on your 4-year plan to get there. And so the more real experiences we can give our kids here to explore some of those potential things sets them up better for that transition and picking the right 4-year pathway, instead of willy-nilly picking freshman year, saying I'll figure it out later, and then learning that doors have been closed to them unintentionally.
Because a lot of the things that Dave is doing leads to like the trades, you know, the WCTC, and I think I gave the 2-year technical program. I had about 20 families, I think, participate in that, you know, between the 2 sessions, because ultimately, I've witnessed it here, my youngest goes to school at WCTC, he's done at 10:30, 11 o'clock. Shoot, he was here at 9:45 and surprised us today, and he comes to work here for us.
Yeah,
So
they're all
he's-
district filters.
Yeah.
There's a lot
So
of them.
it's just, but in order to do that, you have to get all of your Englishes done, you have to do that, and it's not about knowing you want to go do dual enrollment. It's about, if I want to do dual enrollment, this is my option. If I want to take calculus, this is what I need. If I want to go to a very competitive 4-year Harvard, Ivy League, coastal school, this is what I need to do, and this is the stuff I have to start planning about. So just giving parents some
And we
advice.
we piggyback off that in the ACP with the
Yeah.
8th grade as well. They have, we work with Washington Business, Jenny Masson runs it, works with the Washington Business Alliance. For our 8th graders, I actually went with the group, we got the chaperone group to the one where we went to not only WCTC, we saw a lot of dual, we even saw some dual enrollment students. They're working on different things, so they got the experience of that. Then we went to a couple different plant around here too, you know, just to be able to see it live in action kind of thing. But then we also took another group to, Rebecca Himes did a really nice job on the tour of Carroll College. They got to see what a four-year college looks like, and then they went to the health fair. So just trying to expose them to some different things, and, you know, not only just doing it in Zello on the computer, but also then, you know, piggyback what Dave's doing, what Jen's doing, kind of
Make it in real.
thinking about our community engagement. But
Make it in real.
Inspires kids to wanna do it too, man, when you see it in real.
Like, or helps to them to say like, I thought I really wanted to do this, but then I saw that and I do not want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had somebody, I think, pass out at the healthcare expo, I think, and the first thing was well, you're not gonna come back, you're not gonna go to healthcare.
Great that they know that now.
Yeah, well, it's, right, I mean, that's what,
I can't do it.
yeah. So,
I love that idea, like as a community member, having a community profile that I, like, as I travel to a new place, or if I get a different job, be able to go in and, you know, update that and having access to that. That would be amazing, that would be amazing.
Yeah, the dream is good. We'll see how many people want to be
It's all
part
about
of said
responsibility.
database, but I think the dream is there.
we're gonna keep trying to engage. Yep. So any other ideas across the three different pillars that, you know, we've touched on a lot of things. Again, we're just trying to really build, continuing to, and again, we don't want this to be something that is just kind of, you know, just something that happens every year. We're trying to look and say, hey, what new things can we do? How do we, you know, be different?
I had a question about your community newsletters. Have you been doing that in the past, or?
We have, and then we paused, we have in the past, but then we,
So we had real ones for a while that went out like they are now, like
Yep.
trifold or half fold, quarter fold, whatever. Then we went to digital for a year where we were just sending a postcard that had a QR code. We were able to track how many times it was scanned,
Yep.
and it wasn't well received, right? Because our people just weren't taking the time to scan and read it on their phone. And then we took a several year
took a couple years off.
yeah, where we just didn't do anything, and then as part of the strategic plan, there's been a new push to, and we never have trouble filling, right? Like Ron and I'll sit down next week and say, okay, I have it drawn out here, okay, we have 6 pages, Ron, front is the front, the back is the mailings, we really have 4 pages of content in between.
Yeah.
We're already saying, okay, what do we need to fit in? We need something about connecting with our community, right? We need space about joining our mailing list, we need space about the survey that we're sending out. We want to celebrate some people, right? There's somebody retired.
Retired
who's
after
had,
30+ years.
you know, 30 years, she deserves a moment to be celebrating our community. Her newsletter might go out to a lot of people who previously, you know, she taught their children, if they're still around, like, we want to take a moment to celebrate that. So that we've 2.5 pages, so you guys put something else. Right, like it's filled.
I'm just thinking if you got
Yeah.
too much information for that, then maybe do it more often. You know, maybe do it more often. I know there's an expense to it.
Well, it's,
Mailing block, yeah.
correct, mailing isn't actually, it's not as expensive as one would think. And then it's, you know, it's not only information, it's time to put it together, but ultimately, how much does it get saturated, right? You don't want it to be something that just becomes regular, you're like, oh, you know, we don't wanna be the treasurer over here, that's just like, oh, nobody wants to see that. But yeah, so we kinda did that 3 times a year, just the quarters, cause we're in session there
That
too
makes
as well.
sense.
And it's kinda based on timing, you know, the fall one is more,
It's just a generic.
business, you know, we've got, you know, the annual meeting and taxes, things that people are, our winter one was built around the student experience, truly was, and kind of promoting our district from either, you know, open enrollment standpoints and stuff like that, and
To
highlighting
receive it,
those.
it was
Did
awesome.
you get some,
I didn't even know.
get some good feedback from it?
No, haven't heard anything,
No.
Nobody said Jack?
I knew it came out 'cause I got.
outside of, hey, I got your newsletter,
Right.
that was it.
Okay.
But it's a nice resource to have.
It's
because,
nice.
I mean, we got some extra ones printed and like they're in the front office, we
Right.
tour people through who might
Yep.
wanna come here, who move into the area, we can say, here's our most recent thing, and like you mentioned, like our last one really tried to focus on,
I see that.
there it is.
It's not the third one, this is
No,
the
that's
past
the last
one, but-
one. Let's say the first one, we were able to put our school musical in there to invite our broader community to it, the last one we put our school carnival in there, like we try to highlight some kind of event coming up that people from the community are welcome to come to.
Yeah, so just a lot of different things, again, just, yeah, not a lot of feedback around, but again, now we're gonna be able to, you know, ask people to, if you wanna do something with this information, help us out, we'll see what kind of response we get.
You were talking earlier about the survey, maybe you should ask some questions about that, and see if, you know, people read it, you know.
Yeah,
how they
that'll
feel
be,
about
you know,
it.
from a barrier standpoint, from an
Yes.
engagement standpoint, what do you want to learn more about?
We should probably hand out a prize run, and I'm
I
not
know,
even joking.
I'm not
Like,
joking either, I was gonna say,
Could there
embed
be
somewhere in
some
there,
kind of
if you
QR
read
code
this
in here,
far,
like-
come to the Merton school and get a prize. I mean, it could be, this could be.
We got
one of the
beach balls, don't we,
magnets.
Jordan?
Yeah, I got.
What if we have
So-
you know how we have the blue ribbon winners?
Yeah.
Like, what if we had a community
Hundreds
blue
of them
ribbon
we handed
winner?
out on Memorial Day.
We have ribbons.
I'm
They
coming
can
up with
scan this, you
something
don't
this
need
year.
anything magnificent, but it engages people.
I have to say, I have this thing in my newsletter, if you read this, you get a prize.
Yeah.
Each one of those
No.
people, it's awesome.
And
One
how does that
person.
go? One
One
person,
person.
if you read this?
I don't know, she came for the prize, I don't know.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
But hey, but if you-
Because that's really, I mean, even from a parent perspective, I mean, it's, and that's why it's nice, we can go see like the s'mores, for instance. We can go and see how many people open that up, and what are they looking at? So really trying to track that and then really taking a look at that and saying, hey, what do people want to know more of, less of, what do they care about? Trying to tailor it to them.
Ron, on the year, for each of the items, we had identified KPIs, like for each of the pillars. Are those being tracked annually, or like, what's the roll-up on that?
Yep, so annually, yep, so those key KPIs, those are on our data dashboard. Yep, that is what we are
If you
tracking.
guys have all this data, you must
Yep,
be tracking.
yep, so that's on our
KPIs.
website, yes, so it's, and again,
Okay.
we appreciate that, but again, we have a district data dashboard that highlights all of those key KPIs as we go there. And then we're gonna have our own internal ones, so for instance, when we start to talk about measuring our staff engagement, you know, climate and culture, that's all based around school perception surveys and things like that.
And those
too.
are done on an
Annual basis, every October,
Okay.
correct, yep, every October. So, like, for instance, I have board goals that are like, so for instance, last year, we only had 62% of our staff participate in the survey. So one of the goals is we gotta bump that up. I mean, we don't wanna hear from only 2/3, we wanna hear from more, so we can get a little bit more data on that too as well. So we got key performance indicators, there's probably 4 or 5 culture pieces, and I don't have them in front of me.
Yeah.
That basically I'm accountable for, from a school board standpoint, that we take a look at from a district side. And then we share that all at board meetings, you know, so this past year, I think November was staff, December was community, and January was students, I think, or something like that. So, again, really trying to show those off too, that may not be on the KPI indicators, but.
Okay, yeah, I just know for like, in looking at what we had presented, there was the KPIs for the plan for each of the items, so retain 90% of employees,
Oh,
not
yep.
due to retirement or not, like tracking that over that 5-year period, is that tracked annually, obviously, so that after 5 years, we're on target, not on target, et cetera? How are those being, that's kind of what I was wondering.
We
how
have
are
it
those being-
internal, but I
Yeah.
think what you're asking for is external. I mean, is that gonna be something that we could put
Or
on?
is that presented to the board, like,
Yep.
that's great that you're tracking it internally, it's just how are, if we presented that to the board as, these are our KPIs.
That is something, I use that because it's a board goal of
Yep.
mine, is to
Okay.
90%
Got it.
non-retirement.
Perfect.
So it hasn't been lost, it's not public though, and I think is that something we wanna probably try to make it public a little bit more?
Did we publicly share the KPIs?
I don't remember.
I don't remember doing.
Is it on that document?
It's in,
Then
this
it's public.
was an older one.
Oh,
And this, I think,
I mean, it's on the document that you shared with us for today.
okay.
it was, then it's public.
Okay.
Yep, then it's public.
We're
Yep.
just, you know,
So
like,
what
a
I would
recap
say,
of-
Melissa,
we're
is
trending to the 5-year level.
as we will probably do a bigger presentation in July
Okay.
on this to say, hey, this is all the work we did on our strategic plan. And then we would pull this apart to say, how did we do?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense, thank you.
Yep. Thank you for bringing that up. Yep. Any other comments, feedback? Now, this doesn't have to be the only way. I mean, so if Ashley goes home and she's like, oh, I thought about this, send me an email. Again, bring it to the team and we will see what we can do to put it forward. And again, it could be something that just happens too as well, so. Well, yeah, well, thank you. Well, again, hopefully, again, we met hours and hours and hours last year. And we just wanted to bring the gang back together to highlight the work that we've done and ultimately gather some feedback for next year, because it'll be, soon enough, we'll be presenting this to the board to say this is what we want to do next year. So, and these are all things that the board knows about too. So, they've seen a lot of this and understand where we're trying to go to. So,
Is there more follow-up meetings then for progress?
for progress, I mean, if this team wants to get together, you know, in the fall sometime, or just one time a year for check-in, again, that can kind of be up to this team. But that's a good question. How often do we want to come back together?
Yeah, this wasn't like a part of the plan, but we
No,
thought as a
just-
leadership team, this would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because we put so much time in on, but we also don't want people to over-meet, but also,
That's good.
It was a
Great
great team.
question. What is the team, I mean, is one time a year just kind of a summary and as we preview enough, or everybody's doing all right? Okay, all right.
It'd be helpful to know as you present each year's plan to the board, what the board approved the plan, like what we are moving forward with, our user district moving forward with each year. And then, and that doesn't have to be a meeting, right? I'm sure you guys have readouts of some sort. And then a check-in, I think, is really helpful. to see
Yep.
this is what we've
Okay.
done.
Yeah, because when we do go, I mean, we will present this to the board in open session. So it'll be part of a board packet
Yep.
and stuff like that. So if you want a would you like a specific communication or? No, sure, okay,
Yep, so
okay. But no, it'll be,
of that.
because we say this to the board to say, is this the work you want us to do? For instance, let's just say science adoption. Hey, let's pause the science adoption and focus on,
Yep.
there's some maneuvering, but
Yeah. Lost it once.
it was an example, Mary. It was an example. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you guys coming together. And again, if you have other ideas or you want us to think about something, you know how to reach us. So again, thank you everybody for giving up their time.
I just want to say, Joanne wishes everybody well and says although she couldn't make it tonight, she's in Philadelphia. Her son and his wife bought a new house and they're kind of getting into that. I can't imagine Joanne picking out curtains or anything like that, but she's there hoping to get the house set up. So.
I figure she'd be on a cruise boat somewhere or something like that. So thank you, everybody. That'll conclude our committee meeting.
She just
Great,
came
now
back.
that